Welcome to another drawing from Let's Have Fun Drawing Together. Let's dive right into today's story. Spider-Man and the Mystery of the Spider Sense. In the vast city of New York, where skyscrapers rise into the sky like giant guardians of an ever-moving metropolis, lived Peter Parker, better known as Spider-Man. Although in the eyes of the world he was a masked hero who saved the day with his webs, Peter was a young man like any other, facing exams, part-time jobs, and his ever-present need for balance between normal life and that of a superhero. Spider-Man's spider sense is a unique gift that sets him apart from many other heroes. It's a kind of sixth sense that allows him to sense danger before it happens. It's like an internal alarm that goes off in the face of any threat, be it a physical attack, a lurking enemy, or imminent danger in his environment. This power, combined with his super-fast reflexes, makes Spider-Man nearly impossible to catch off guard. Whether he's dodging bullets, avoiding traps, or facing off against villains like the Green Goblin or Dr. Octopus, Peter's spider sense always keeps him one step ahead. But Spider-Man wouldn't be the hero we all know without his signature sense of humor. Despite facing situations that would make anyone nervous, Peter Parker always finds time to throw in witty quips, sarcastic remarks, and light-hearted taunts. Even in the midst of the most intense battles, this sense of humor not only baffles his enemies, but also helps him handle the pressure of being a hero. It's his way of staying human in a world filled with danger and responsibility. Peter uses his humor as an emotional shield, a way to deal with the enormous burden that comes with protecting others. From lines like, "Did you know I have a policy of not getting hit by guys in silly outfits?" to quick quips about his adversary's complicated plans, Spider-Man keeps his tone light and accessible, even when the fate of the city is at stake. This balance between an unerring spider sense and his witty humor is what makes Spider-Man so special. It's a reminder that even though he has extraordinary abilities, he's still a young man with dreams, fears, and hopes. For Peter, being Spider-Man means more than having powers. It means using his wits, heart, and determination to make a difference in the world, always with a smile and a joke ready. After several minutes, he came to a dark alley. There didn't seem to be anything out of the ordinary, just some trash bins and a cat sniffing around in the shadows. But the tickle was still there, like an insistent echo in his mind. "This doesn't make sense," he thought as he landed softly on the ground. Just as he was about to leave, something caught his eye. A hooded figure emerged from the shadows. His eyes glowed with a strange tone, and there was something unsettling about his presence. Peter tensed, ready for anything. "I knew you'd come, Spider-Man," the figure said in a deep, resonant voice. Chapter 2: The Mysterious Scientist. The hooded figure stepped forward, revealing a face Peter didn't recognize. He was a middle-aged man, with piercing eyes and an air of mystery that enveloped him like a cloak. He wore a long, black coat, and under his arm he held some sort of device that looked like a cross between a scanner and a futuristic watch. "Who are you?" Spider-Man asked, keeping a safe distance as he adjusted his gloves. "My name is Dr. Elliot Crane," the man replied calmly. "I have dedicated my life to studying the limits of human senses, and you, Spider-Man, are the key to my research." Peter frowned beneath his mask. "That doesn't sound reassuring at all. What do you want from me?" Crane held up his hands in a gesture of peace. "Nothing you aren't willing to offer. I'm not looking to hurt you. In fact, I want to help you." "Help me?" Peter let out a short, sarcastic laugh. "Let me guess. You want to analyze my spider sense, figure out how it works, and then sell the information to the highest bidder?" The doctor shook his head. "Nothing like that. But have you ever wondered what your spider sense actually is? How does it work? Why is it so unique?"
The question made Peter pause for a moment. It was true that he had never fully understood how his ability worked. He only knew that it was there, like a part of him that he couldn't explain, but that he always depended on. Crane continued. "Your sense isn't just a reflex or an instinct that's connected to something much deeper. Maybe even an invisible web that connects all living things. If we work together, we might be able to unlock its true potential." Peter crossed his arms, still suspicious. And what do I gain from this? Absolute control over one of your most important abilities, Crane replied seriously. Imagine being able to anticipate events with even greater precision. You could save more lives, prevent more disasters. Your spider sense is like a muscle, Spider-Man. If you train it, it will only get stronger. Though he was still wary, Peter was curious. If there was a way to better understand his ability, perhaps he could use it to protect more people as well. But something about Crane just didn't quite convince him. Okay, he finally said. I'll give you a chance. But if this turns into something weird, I assure you that you won't like seeing me angry. Crane nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. You won't regret it, Spider-Man. This could be the greatest adventure of your life. And so, Spider-Man decided to follow the enigmatic Dr. Crane into the unknown, not knowing that this encounter would mark the beginning of a journey that would forever change his relationship with his spider sense and with himself. Chapter 3. The Hidden Laboratory. Spider-Man followed Dr. Crane through a series of dark, narrow alleys. Though he kept his distance, his spider sense remained active, warning him of any potential danger. The doctor walked with an eerie confidence, as if each step was perfectly calculated. Finally, they arrived at an old, run-down building, its graffiti-covered facade giving no hint of the sophisticated laboratory within. Crane opened a metal door that led to a descending staircase. Peter paused for a moment before entering. Something in the air seemed thick, as if the place was charged with energy. Are you sure about this? He asked, trying to hide his distrust behind his typical sarcasm. Of course. This lab is my life, Crane replied proudly. They descended the stairs into a large, well-lit space. The walls were covered with screens displaying graphs, waves, and complex diagrams. In one corner, there was a tank filled with a greenish liquid in which something indecipherable floated, and in the center of the lab, a table was covered in technological devices that looked like something straight out of a science fiction movie. Impressive, isn't it? Crane said, watching Spider-Man's reaction. Peter couldn't help but feel a hint of curiosity. The place was impressive, but there was also something disturbing about it. Well, if this isn't a villain's lair, I don't know what is, he joked. Crane let out a small laugh. I understand, but everything you see here has a purpose. My purpose. The doctor walked over to one of the tables and picked up a small device that looked like an earpiece with several tiny antennas. This, Spider-Man, is the first step in understanding your spider sense. With your permission, I would like to monitor your brainwaves as you react to certain stimuli. Peter eyed him suspiciously. What kind of stimuli? Crane pointed to a series of machines that projected images and sounds. Nothing dangerous, simulations that will help you activate your spider sense in different ways. We need to see how it responds to different levels of threat. Spider-Man sighed, reminding himself that he could walk out of here at any time if things got weird. Okay, but just to be clear, if this feels weird, I'm out. Perfect, Crane said, adjusting the earpiece over Peter's mask. Relax, and let the experiment begin. The lights in the lab dimmed as a series of images began to play on the screens. First, peaceful scenes. A park full of children playing, birds flying in a clear sky. Peter felt only a slight tickle on the back of his neck. But suddenly, the images changed. A shadow appeared on the screens, followed by a roar that echoed throughout the lab. The figure in the images seemed to be moving toward Peter, and even though he knew it was a simulation, his spider sense went off like lightning. Interesting, Crane murmured as he watched the graphics on a nearby screen. Your response is immediate, but there's something else. It seems your sense isn't just detecting physical danger, but also something deeper, like a disturbance in the environment. Before Peter could respond, the earpiece began to vibrate slightly, sending a slight impulse through his head. The tickle on the back of his neck intensified, but not in an unpleasant way. It was as if his spider sense was being amplified. What are you doing? Peter asked, alert. Just a little tweaking to enhance the connection between your perception and your surroundings, Crane replied. Trust me, we're making history here. Chapter 4. The Chaos Scenario. After what seemed like endless minutes of testing, Crane stopped the simulations and removed the headset. Peter felt more alert than ever, as if his spider sense had reached a new level of sensitivity. "This is strange," Peter admitted as he massaged the back of his neck. "Strange, but effective," Crane said, showing a graph in which Spider-Man's spider sense responses were represented as sharp, precise spikes. "Your ability is even more complex than I imagined. It's directly connected to something I call the universal web." "The universal web?" Peter asked, arching an eyebrow. "It's a theory," Crane explained. "I think your spider sense not only alerts you to immediate dangers, but also connects you to the vibrations of life itself. It's as if you sense the echoes of events that haven't happened yet." Peter let out a sigh. "This is starting to sound too mystical for my taste." Crane ignored him and walked over to a console, activating a new simulation. This time, the lab began to shake slightly, as if an earthquake was about to occur. Lights flickered, and a deafening sound filled the space. "What are you doing now?" Peter asked, raising his voice to be heard. "Simulating a scenario of total chaos," Crane replied. "I want to see how your spider sense responds when everything seems to be in danger." The tingle on the back of Peter's neck became a wave that ran through his entire body. It was like every cell was on high alert. He looked around, searching for real danger, but it was all part of the simulation. Suddenly, the tank with the greenish liquid began to crack, and the liquid began to leak onto the ground. "Hey, Crane, I think your experiment is going too far," Peter warned. But before Crane could respond, a small, slimy creature emerged from the tank. It had tentacles and glowing eyes that emitted a bluish light. Peter felt his spider sense go off, warning him that this thing was dangerous. "What the hell is that?" he exclaimed as he jumped back, getting into an attack position. "It's an experiment," Crane said, obviously nervous. "It shouldn't be out here." "Don't tell me," Peter replied sarcastically as he threw a web to contain the creature. But the being was surprisingly fast, dodging the attack with ease. The lab was thrown into chaos, with the creature sliding down the walls and destroying equipment as Crane desperately tried to control it from the console. Peter, for his part, let his spider sense guide him. Every move of the creature was anticipated by that internal alert, allowing him to dodge its attacks and eventually catch it in a thicker web. When it was all over, Peter looked at Crane with a mix of anger and exhaustion. "This isn't what I would call a simple test." Crane looked down, evidently embarrassed. "I'm sorry. I didn't anticipate something like this could happen." Peter sighed deeply. "This is a mess, but at least now I know my spider sense can handle more than I thought." And as the lab began to quiet down, Peter couldn't help but wonder if he had done the right thing in trusting Crane. Chapter 5. The Betrayal Revealed. Spider-Man still stood in the mess of the lab, watching as Dr. Crane tried to repair the damage caused by the failed experiment. Although the slimy creature had been contained, something about the scientist's attitude didn't add up. His body language was becoming increasingly restless, his movements jerky, and his eyes avoided contact with Peter at all costs. "This wasn't a simple mistake, was it?" Spider-Man said as he crossed his arms and looked at him seriously. "What are you talking about?" Crane replied, feigning calm as he picked up broken pieces from the floor. Peter let out a sigh. "My spider sense doesn't just detect physical dangers, remember? It also detects lies, and right now the back of my neck is screaming that something isn't right here." Crane paused for a moment, dropping a couple of wires he was holding. Finally, he turned to Peter with a cold, calculating expression. "You're more perceptive than I expected, but it's too late for you to discover the truth." Before Peter could react, a group of drones emerged from the shadows of the lab. They were small but advanced machines, equipped with mechanical arms and glowing red lights that gave a sense of impending threat. At the same time, the doors of the lab closed with a metallic clang, sealing him inside. "Oh, fantastic! I knew this was too good to be true," Spider-Man said as he prepared for battle. Crane retreated to a raised platform, where a control panel glowed with blinking lights. "This was all part of the plan, Spider-Man. I wasn't interested in helping you understand your spider sense. What I really wanted was to isolate it, study it, and replicate it. Replicate it? What are you, a genetics fanatic? Peter replied as he shot a web at one of the drones, which exploded in a shower of sparks. You have no idea of the potential you have within you, Crane continued as he fiddled with the controls. Your spider sense is the key to creating a global warning system. Imagine a world where any threat can be detected before it happens. It could save millions of lives. But of course, there's a small price to pay. Your freedom. Spider-Man dodged a laser fired by another drone, spinning in the air with impressive agility. Let me guess. That price includes me becoming your guinea pig forever, right? Exactly, Crane replied without a trace of remorse. You are unique, Peter. And that makes you invaluable. Peter froze for an instant. How do you know my name? Crane smiled with a mix of triumph and mockery. You think I didn't do my research thoroughly before contacting you? I knew who you were from the moment you walked through that door. This was all carefully planned. The revelation hit Peter like a bucket of cold water. But he had no time to process it. Drones surrounded him, each one seeming more advanced than the last. The machines moved in sync, blocking any escape routes. It's okay, Crane. If you wanted my attention, you have it, he said as he launched a flurry of webs at several drones at once. The machines fell to the ground, but not before releasing small devices that emitted a high-pitched, piercing sound. The pain in Peter's head was immediate, like a needle being stabbed into his brain. His spider sense was overloaded, emitting conflicting alerts that disoriented him. He staggered, trying to keep his balance as Crane watched from the platform, reveling in his victory. What's going on? Peter shouted, putting his hands to his head. It's a neurosensory inhibitor, Crane explained coldly. It interferes with your spider sense, blocking it while simultaneously amplifying danger signals to overload your nervous system. You won't be able to rely on your reflexes for much longer. Peter gritted his teeth, fighting through the pain. That's not going to stop me! With superhuman effort, Spider-Man used a combination of brute strength and his wits to destroy the devices on the ground. The explosions left a cloud of smoke that filled the lab, covering Peter as he moved stealthily towards Crane's platform. Where are you? Crane shouted, unable to locate him through the smoke. Suddenly, a web shot out, ripping the controls from Crane's hands. Before he could react, Peter appeared behind him, hanging upside down from the ceiling. Do you know the difference between you and me, Crane? He said in a firm voice. I never underestimate my enemies. With one swift movement, Peter immobilized Crane with webs, leaving the scientist trapped in his own trap. This is over, he declared as he activated the controls to open the doors to the lab. But just when he thought it was all over, an alert rang out. Something bigger and more dangerous was about to break free. What did you do now? Peter asked, looking at Crane in frustration. The scientist let out a sinister laugh. This is just beginning, Spider-Man. It's just beginning. Chapter 6. The Beast Unleashed. The alert echoed like a deafening heartbeat in the lab as the lights flickered in a menacing red. Spider-Man, with Crane pinned in webs, looked around, trying to identify where the new danger was coming from. It was then that a steel door at the far end of the lab began to slowly open, accompanied by a metallic clang. What is that? Peter muttered, approaching cautiously as his spider sense, though weakened, sent him small warning pulses. Crane, with a twisted grin on his face, sneered, Meet my masterpiece, a creature designed to hunt, adapt, and overcome any obstacle, a beast perfected with the information I gained from your spider sense. From the darkness emerged a massive, almost alien-looking figure. The creature had a robust body covered in shiny plates, like natural armor. Its eyes were multiple and glowed a phosphorescent green, and sharp claws sprouted from its limbs that moved with deadly precision. Its form was an amalgam of several predators, the agility of a feline, the strength of a bear, and the lethality of a scorpion. Did you really have to combine all the most dangerous animals into one thing? Spider-Man asked in a sarcastic tone, though the weight of the situation was evident in his voice. The creature let out a guttural roar, filled with rage that made the walls of the laboratory tremble. Then, it advanced towards Peter with quick and calculated movements. "Great! Another monster that wants to rip my head off!" Peter exclaimed as he jumped to the ceiling to avoid the first attack. The battle began in a chaos of dizzying movements. The beast jumped from side to side, throwing blows that Spider-Man barely managed to dodge. Although his spider sense was weakened, his reflexes and experience as a hero kept him one step ahead, but just barely. "This isn't going to last long if I keep dodging," Peter thought as he looked for a way to take advantage. The creature, however, was not just any opponent. With every move, he seemed to learn Spider-Man's patterns, adapting and anticipating his actions. At one critical moment, he threw a punch that Peter barely managed to block with reinforced webbing. "This is impossible! He's learning too fast," he said as he backed away toward a table filled with scientific equipment. Crane, who was still trapped, couldn't help but laugh. "I told you, Spider-Man. It's not just brute force. It's intelligence in its purest form. It's the future of hunting." Peter ignored the scientist's words and began to improvise. He grabbed several vials of chemicals and quickly mixed them together, creating a liquid that began to bubble violently. "If this doesn't work, at least it'll be a great show," he muttered before throwing the mixture at the creature. The liquid exploded into a cloud of steam, temporarily blinding the beast. Peter took advantage of the moment to throw reinforced webs at it, trapping it against one of the lab walls. "That's it! Stay there and think about what you did," he said as he secured the webs. But the victory was short-lived. The creature, with tremendous strength, tore through the webs and roared with even more fury. "Of course, because things can never be easy!" Peter exclaimed as he prepared for the next assault. As the beast charged again, Peter remembered something Crane had mentioned earlier. Designed to hunt, adapt, overcome. Then he had an idea. "If this thing is designed to react to stimuli, maybe it can overload its senses," he thought. He looked around the lab and saw several UV lamps and sound generators used in the experiments. He quickly connected the lamps to a main circuit and programmed the generators to emit sound frequencies in various ranges. "This is going to hurt, but I hope it works," he said as he activated the system. Suddenly, the lab was filled with a bright light and a deafening sound that made even Peter stagger. The beast, unable to adapt to such extreme stimuli in such a short time, roared in pain and fell to the ground, immobilized. Peter breathed a sigh of relief as the lights and sounds faded away. "And this is how it's done, little buddy." The end of Crane. With the creature neutralized, Peter turned to Crane. "You know what I hate most about guys like you? They never think about the consequences." Crane, desperate, tried to justify his actions. "This was for the good of humanity, for progress." "Progress? You created a monster that nearly destroyed this entire place. You have no idea what responsibility means," Peter replied as he bound him with more webs. Minutes later, the authorities arrived at the lab, alerted by the unusual activity. Spider-Man handed Crane over and explained what had happened. The creature, weakened but alive, was taken to a safe place to be contained and studied. When it was all over, Peter left the lab and swung between the buildings, thinking about what had happened. His spider sense was still recovering, but his instincts told him he had done the right thing. Crane was right about one thing, he thought, as he looked at the city skyline. My spider sense is a gift, but it's also a responsibility. And no matter how many enemies I face, I'll always find a way to use it to protect others. And with that, Spider-Man disappeared into the night, ready to face the next challenge.
Thank you for watching. Watch another video on our channel. Let's have fun drawing together, where another unique character embarks on a new adventure.